Thanks, David. Can everybody hear me? Great. Welcome to Level Up Your Bug Bounty. Quick agenda. I'm going to cover our environment, a little bit about how our bug bounty is going, some of the things we've learned, how we went about getting engineers involved, and then I'll go over some examples of real bugs that have been submitted, and we can talk about those in at least a high level of detail. Just to start, every presentation I give has this slide in it. This is our mission. This is what we do. I help people get jobs. And so everything that we are working on and everything that we try and improve is to help job seekers. We have a mantra, do what's best for the job seeker, and we do that sometimes regardless of the consequences. If something is good for the job seeker, we do it. Protecting their data is good for the job seeker. Protecting their information and only releasing it when they want us to release it is also what's best for the job seeker, so that goes into why we have a bug bounty. If you're not familiar with Indeed, we are the #1 job site worldwide. If you add all our closest competitors together, they're not even close to where we are. We're the top blue line there. So the #1 source of hire. This is from Silk Road. Indeed is live in 60 plus countries, 28 languages. We have about 200 million visitors, unique visitors per month. At any given point, there's about 16 million jobs hosted on Indeed. We add 8.2 new jobs every second to the site. We've got now about 80 million resumes. That number's nearly doubled since in the past year, since the last time I gave a presentation similar to this. We have the #1 mobile app in 30 countries. And there's something that's interesting about Indeed is that 58% of our traffic is people searching from another country. So some of the typical things that you might do, like blocking IPs in Russia, doesn't really work for us because we have Russian job seekers that are looking for jobs. Our security team, I often get asked, how large is your security team? And my answer to that is always everyone in the company. That is really our goal. So a little bit about our environment. We handle about 100 deploys a week. Indeed has 5 engineering offices located around the globe in places like Japan and San Francisco and Seattle and here in Austin and Hyderabad, India. So it's a really around-the-clock operation. We don't want to be in the way of engineers releasing their new features, so that goes on in near real time. We also have data centers. There's about a dozen data centers located throughout the globe that support job seekers in every corner of the world. We take an interesting approach. Basically, we look at everything from a risk perspective. Risk meaning probability times impact, probability of occurrence times impact. And we look to reduce the threat envelope. So when we're thinking about the information that we must keep and protect, we just try to decide, is this a toxic asset? And if it is, we get rid of it. Things like credit cards, we do not keep, we do not store those. We let the bank handle those, and that we don't have to build Fort Knox around a bunch of data that we don't want to keep anyway. Generally, you may have seen this, basically the graph shows that bugs become more expensive to fix the longer you wait. So if you wait for something to be in production, that's the most expensive time to catch that bug. So if you can catch it earlier, you have less risk. What we're going to be talking about mostly today is catching things in production. There's a couple of different approaches that you can take, and I've taken in my previous careers. One is the big hammer approach. You take the security team and you stick it in the release process, and you go, no-go on every release that happens. With hundreds of releases every week, if we did that, it would definitely slow down innovation in the business. Pros are that testing happens prior to the release. Release is stopped if there's bugs. Cons are, like I mentioned, you slow the product teams down. What's interesting is that I've found that product teams may only fix the bugs that you report, even though they know that others exist in that situation, which is kind of weird. That's not what we want. So I found it just to be inefficient. Then I've tried pen testing, as I'm sure most in here have. Tried it with internal pen test teams. What I learned is that you can do it continuously. Like, you can keep up with how many deploys that are happening throughout the week. One of the interesting things is you tend to get very similar results. Like, depending on the creativity of the folks that you have, you get the results that they do. So you've got to do a lot to kind of get them new information, conferences and training and things like that, so they can see new techniques. Or you can outsource the pen testing. Definitely, you don't do that all the time. It's very cost prohibitive to have continuous external pen testing, and you get similar results when you repeat. There's also this bug bounty approach. I don't know if everybody in here is familiar with bug bounties, but basically it's asking the folks who are testing the site usually anyway in production to tell you about things that they find. Managing that kind of program on your own is kind of exciting and nervous-making to do. You might get a lot of interesting feedback. Doing things this way is also interesting because if you look at who has them, it's kind of all the cool kids like the Googles of the world and so on. There's just a name a top company and they seem to have a bug bounty. And so we were very curious about this in 2013 when we started looking at putting a bug bounty out. So as we looked a little bit more, we looked into the bug bounty and we asked what gets tested. And so you get targets, you get to define targets in your bug bounty. Say, here are the URLs, here are the applications I want you to test, here are the ones that you shouldn't. You can define things that are out of scope, like they shouldn't. And you can also have rules of engagement, like whether or not you're going to allow disclosure and things like that. So you get to define that in a bug bounty. So it reduces the risk of somebody doing something you don't want them to do. One of the things that happened when I tried to roll out the bug bounty the first time was a lot of objections from product and engineering and the legal team. Like now in public, people are going to know when we have a problem and how are we going to deal with that. From the legal team and from product and engineering, they said, well, what if we get thousands of bugs and that's going to stop our ability to innovate and add new features? And so lots of concerns there. Basically, we took an interesting approach to try and our partner Bug Crowd helped us with this. Just dip our toe in the water a little bit, like establish a small environment to try this in. And we actually tried in prod. So we decided in June 2014 that we would roll out a points-only bug bounty program. So there was really not much cost involved in doing it. We roll it out and folks can hack on the site and they tell us what they found. And then they can earn points for that. And so we saw a lot of folks do that. We're very metrics driven, and so we're watching a lot of graphs, and this graph shows we've got a whole lot of duplicate. That orange line going up and to the right there are the duplicates that are being found. So we've got lots of people on the site finding bugs, but they're finding the same bugs that other people have already found. The other thing that's interesting is our unresolved and resolved are pretty flat, which means that we're keeping up with the tickets that are coming in. And so this looks good. It looks like the vendor that is providing value to us, and we can handle it. Like this isn't too much activity. So handled the concerns from product that way. So after we rolled that out, we said, okay, let's start paying and see what happens now. So we rolled out a minimum of 50 and a maximum of 1,500 payout. And we saw this in the middle there around 8/1/2014, which is the third line over, where it kind of sharply goes up. We saw a sharp increase in reports of tickets. So this is good, right? This is what we want. We want to start finding high quality defects on the site. So how's it going? In the past 2.5 years, we've had 3,054 submissions. We've rewarded on 383 bugs, so about 10% of them. Our average payout now is $263.80, and our total payout over 2.5 years is $101,300. There's something interesting about this. As I've done more and more bug bounty, I went at this initially with trying to save money with finding bugs, and as we've been doing this more, my opinion has changed to really wanting to support and make this a viable career for folks. That I want to fund it to an extent that people are interested in continuing to test our site and dealing with finding some of the same bugs day after day that we haven't gotten around to fixing yet, and find the really juicy ones. So we were looking at ways of incenting that. One of the ways that we're dealing with that is making sure we get back to the testers quickly. So with our average response time is 14 days. So if somebody finds a bug on our site, we're getting back to them and letting them know whether or not that's valid and so on quickly. So keep them engaged. In terms of breakdown, this is recent. So our current reward amount goes up to $5,000. Critical submissions, these would be like remote code execution, things like that. About 1% are these critical must fix now, drop everything kind of submissions. And then high, medium, lows, 4%, 31, and 64%. So we are seeing a lot of the lows come up. So let's get into lesson learns a little bit. So this is our payout. So I talked about the $100,000 payout. In the very beginning of this graph, you'll see it's 0. That's where we were points only. As it goes up, you can see it's pretty much linear. We're tracking this and happy to see that the payouts are going over time, but this really doesn't tell us a whole lot about how well we're doing. So we started to calculate a 90-day window to just look at average payouts. So how well is the program working in terms of getting good bugs or getting bugs in? So what you'll see here is there's a couple of dips. This first one, before this red line, it was free. That was points only. And we started paying. So when we started paying, obviously, total number of dollars that we're paying goes up. At some point, we decided to do a little marketing push and try and get some more folks to submit bugs. And so we did that. We kept the payouts the same, but that was largely successful. We got a lot more bugs out of that. So we got a little bit of a lift, and then you see it kind of goes down. And so we decided that we wanted to get more higher quality bugs, and so we were going to give it a shot at raising the maximum payout. And that was super effective, as you can see. We started paying out more, and we're getting more submissions. Something interesting happened if we look at the severity of the bugs that happened. And this graph is a little weird to look at. Lower means we're finding bugs that are more important to us. So that's good. Lower is good. So we saw that we're getting some better, more severe bug finds over time. And then you can see just after that red line, it starts to climb up. That's when we did the marketing push to get more folks trying to test on the site. And we got some lower quality submissions, still good submissions, but some more lower quality. So it brought our average down. Then right here is where we increased the top end payouts. And you can see at that point, at this level, we attracted some very serious testers, and they're really getting us some excellent bugs. And I'll talk about some of those in detail in a minute. So what's it like to work with the crowd? So one of the things you're dealing with is English is a second language for a lot of the folks in the crowd. So communication and being patient with that communication and working with folks, encouraging them when they make a submission and it's not really reproducible, encouraging them to work on it a little bit more and get you some more details, and that back and forth, there's a little bit of effort in that. And so you're dealing with just language barriers. Everything that we do is in English, so the onus is on them to communicate with us, but ultimately we want the good bugs that they're finding, so we need to understand them. The other thing that we're seeing is you get these different points of view. You're getting submissions and you're getting the reproduction steps. So you're getting to see how somebody in a different country from a different walk of life, you're getting this diversity of the view of how to go about testing something. And we've learned an incredible amount. In fact, recently from the things we've learned, we've been creating tools to make sure that we can keep up with and do the things that they've been doing. So it's been an incredible educational experience. As you've seen before, Bug Crowd for us, it reduces our workload by about 80%. They do that by reviewing the duplicates, so we're not having to deal with all the duplicate submissions that happen. They vet the submissions, so if there's anything that's incorrect in them or it's not reproducible, doesn't have enough information, they'll make sure that the tester knows that and work with the crowd to get that right. And they provide a level of verification. So to date, we've had 1,247 individual testers that have submitted bugs to us, which is awesome. So we have an external security team that's almost 1,300 strong, which is pretty incredible. We also have a Hall of Fame. It's a little over 500 folks now. Something that's probably happened to everyone in here is you get these independent testers that'll find something on your site and then send you an email that looks like blackmail. There's like, pay me and I'll tell you about this thing I found on your site. When that happens now, we have a place to send them. We can go, hey, we'll gladly pay you. Just sign up in BugCrowd and like submit it, and we'll pay you. And it makes the conversation with them really easy. And so we've gotten some great submissions that way, and honestly avoided some possibly bad submissions by putting them through the process. We've also made some mistakes. One of the things that was happening is we were getting bugs in at some point that they were coming a little more quickly than we could deal with them, and our backlog started to go up. And so at some point we decided, listen, we're not going to verify them also, which is a part of the workflow where once it comes to us, we verify that we can reproduce it. And the reason we do that is we want to be able to have a local person that our development team can come to and say, I don't understand what this is, show me how it's happening and help me fix it. And we just couldn't get to them. And so at some point we said, we're just going to pay everybody and assume that they were right. So we learned that we needed to add staff a little sooner on that one. And then we also establish a boundary to pay. Like, we're not going to let anything get so old that we're in a situation like this again. Ultimately, we want a happy crowd that's working for us and finding lots of bugs and submitting them. And that's the goal. And for a few $1,000s, it doesn't make sense to put that in jeopardy. I often get asked if we do it again, we definitely would launch a bug bounty program again. One of the things you run into is getting engineers involved. Like, this is always interesting because you're fighting product features, right? To get operational bugs fixed. So what works? We found that education is kind of the key to getting engineers involved. The security is really fun, and we just have to show everybody that it's really fun and you really want to work on these bugs, because that's more fun than product features. So we're keeping them engaged by doing these education. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. We also got some of the teams to define their own SLAs. We did not define it for them, which is something a mistake I'd made in a previous life, was saying, hey, you must fix this bug in 30 days if it's of this severity. That was rarely successful. I always was talking to executives and really fighting to make that happen. We asked the teams to set their own SLAs, like, now that you understand what the bugs are, we've done the education, when do you think that should be fixed? Like, how often do you think you should be rolling out security patches? And so they've started to set SLAs of their own, and they're adhering to them because they're their own goals. One of the things we've done for education is a lock-picking happy hour. We brought in some Torchy's queso, and we brought in a bunch of locks, and exposed people to this thing that I saw the first time. I'm sure most folks here have done a lock-picking happy hour of some sort. The first time I did it, I sat down at a bench at, maybe it was Black Hat or something, and started to pick locks. It took me 30 seconds with no training, and I picked the lock. And my mind was absolutely blown. Like, this, every time I left my house, I'd lock the door and think, that's pretty secure. Like, you'd have to be pretty skilled to be able to pick that lock. Man, was I wrong. So I wanted other people to see that. Like, don't trust that the things that you are doing are secure. Like, try it. It's fun. It's fun to be able to pick a lock. And we've actually had cases where folks have, locked their little desk drawer or something, and then we've needed to pick the lock for them at work. So it's a useful skill. We've also done Firewall-Free Fridays, which basically weekly discussions, and we have a focused topic. We're like, here's XSS, here's what you could do with it. And we're teaching developers how to be a white hat, and how to exploit the function, how to fix it. So that's garnered a lot of interest. And there's beer too, so that helps. We've also had classes and text talks. We've been internationally to the different engineering offices and taught them how to break web apps and how all of these different security concepts work, including social engineering. One of my favorites, possibly because I got bitten by it because I didn't know what was going on, was we had an internal blog. So we basically put a proof of concept out that was a great blog post, and along with that blog post, as you read it, it would use a CSRF post to post a comment for you about how awesome the blog was. And so there's some examples of some of the comments there that we got. I think that was a fun one. So it was lighthearted, and it gave people an idea, because often when you see XSS and CSRF bugs come in, folks who aren't aware of what could be done are swayed greatly once they see like how this is what could happen, and it happened kind of magically and it wasn't intended. So it's been great to have that kind of educational tool. One of the things I've said from the beginning, and this has been useful, I highly recommend it if you're not doing things this way. A security bug is just a bug. It's just a bug. It's like a functionality bug. You've got to look at what this bug is, what the risk to your business of not fixing it, and decide whether or not you're going to fix it and how quickly you're going to fix it. And the teams can do that. The development teams, their own, are capable of making that decision, and I've seen will do it right. They will prioritize things correctly. If you're calculating a cart and you calculate the total wrong and you charge people the wrong amount, that's a super serious bug. If you allow SQL injection and somebody could change that cart, that's a super serious bug. Like, the teams will make the right decisions on this stuff. And then there's some things that they need a little help with. In the case of Heartbleed and security bugs like that, that's instantaneous stop, and they'll get it. Like, they start to understand the severity conversation when they're making their own decisions. Still focusing on education, we talk about recent security events in the industry. We talked about the Target hack with developers. We had tech talks about that, and other hacks that are going on. Like, this is really what's happening in the industry. We talk about the economy that exists. Like, why do people hack? Like, there's a place for them to sell this data once they get it. What's the motivation? So really education about why these things are happening. We've also had security challenges, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. We hosted a security challenge, which is basically a contest where you could win prizes. And so this is a graph kind of showing the number of open security bugs over time, and that red line is where we held the security challenge. And so you can see we got tons of stuff fixed during that. It's super successful. Everybody was happy, and it was fun. We need to do another one, see how it's climbing. Okay, let's talk about some actual submissions. These are fun. So the first one I'll cover is an XML external entity, XXE. Basically, this is where you can put XML and reference an external entity from within an XML document. You're not going to be able to read this, but if you've cracked open a Word document, that's what it looks like inside. It's totally XML these days. You can stick something like this in that XML document that will make a call, in this case to www.attacker.com test.txt. Now, why was this a problem for us? We have resumes. You can upload your resume to Indeed. People do their resume in Word, then they upload the doc. One of our testers said, hey, I wonder if I put this XXE in this document, if it would work. He did it. It did. He told us about it. So that's interesting. You can make a call out. But then it gets more interesting. You can get password and shadow from that. So these are kind of things that we didn't even think about as possibilities when we rolled out a product that would allow folks to upload a resume. And that's core. We've got 80 million resumes. That's core feature. So we want that to work. So the ingenuity of this tester in finding this, explaining it to us, and helping us reproduce it so that we could get it fixed, allowed us to fix it actually really quickly and protect our job seekers. Another fun one. We saw XSS, cross-site scripting, in a user agent string. So we have a tool on the back end, and there's a little screenshot of it that folks can go through and look at the traffic that's happening on the site. That tool would render the JavaScript that was in the user agent. So tester found this. Luckily, it wasn't a real hacker. It was our friend. They told us about it, and we were able to reproduce it and fix that. This one was weird. So almost everybody does a vendor company name .mycompanyname.com thing, like for their Salesforce or for any number of different services that they have, and they just CNAME that off, and they're like, okay, we want it to be our domain, and we want this all to work nice. One of the things that we found is if you stop doing business with that company, that IP and that domain remains out there and continues to work. So if somebody stands up a server on that IP, guess what? They got all your cookies. That's interesting. Didn't think of that. This has actually happened to us twice. We've gotten 2 submissions. We paid out $2,200 when this one happened. And it was just, one of the groups was using some small service that wasn't core to our business, and they decided to stop using it. It was maybe a couple $100 a year kind of service. We'd stood up a domain, and that's bad. Luckily, this has only happened from our testers. I think this is something we would have never found on our own. We wouldn't have built the tool to go pull all the DNS names and go iterate through them and find them like these folks are doing. And they're motivated, so $2,200 is not a bad payout. We rolled out a new application, and it had it allowed Python evals to be executed. And so we saw a remote code execution vulnerability within hours, actually, of the new application deployment. We paid that tester $5,000. He caught it in minutes, literally told us about it. Super bad, like RCE on the server is bad. Told us about it, caught it, told us about it. So these folks that are enumerating and going through our systems, they know more about our systems than we do, and they're incented to tell us about it because we'll pay them well. So that was about all the content I have. We're at about 30 minutes, so I've got some time for Q&A. So we're there.
So I'm not clear, did you guys set up the bug bounty program yourself internally, or did you engage a third party to help you establish that?
Great question. We engaged BugCrowd to help us with that. I was a little nervous about dealing with a crowd that might be potentially thousands, and in my previous experience of dealing with white hats who had kind of notified us about things that were going on the site and wanted to get paid before they tell us, I didn't want to get into that. And so I needed an expert, somebody who's been doing that quite a bit, knew how to motivate these folks, knew how to filter out the bad ones, and kind of took care of that busy work, because I'm focused on trying to help people get jobs, not run a bug bounty program. This is a great question. So the question is, how do we manage all the bug reports? That's what BugCrowd does for us. So they'll remove 80 to 90% of the workload by looking, does it have enough information? Has it been submitted already? Is it legit? Does it actually work? And then they'll pass on the 10 to 20% to us. So that's at the level that our security team internally can handle that. There was a graph I showed a little bit earlier where it kind of went up and then dropped down. That was a place where we didn't hire fast enough, and so the age of those things went way up until we just decided to just pay them. We went straight with a public points-only bounty, and so we just mitigated our risk by being points-only. That worked really well for us. It allowed us to learn about what the testers might do, how the submission process works, what kind of information we're going to get. We learned quite a bit from that. We also learned that we needed to up the bounty amounts. Ultimately, when we got to the 5,000 top level bounty, that's where we really started seeing excellent submissions, like really, really good juicy stuff. And I think we got into a level of tester that is interested and capable of helping us. It was 2 months before of points. And then what I was looking for is, if it's this graph, it doesn't have the dates on it. It was 2 months to get to the points, and then we ran a marketing, this one right here is where we did the marketing push to try and get more folks testing. That was money. So right here is where we started paying money. Yes, that 2 months just for scale is the part of the graph where there's nothing to the left-hand side there. So if you kind of think about that's 2 months, those are 2-month segments. So the question is, what is the value? Why would anybody try and hack for points? And would we do it again? The points, there's kind of a gamification that happens that testers are invited, and BugCrowd actually handles all of this when they roll it out. They're invited on a VIP kind of basis to this new program. First in kind of gets the first shot at finding bugs, which means you're less likely to get hit by a duplicate. You're also getting kind of experience points on the site. You're awarded these points as a tester, and so that changes your rank, which opens you up for other bounties as they launch. So you really want to be in that top tier group as a white hat, so that you're getting invited to, let's say Nike's rolling out a new one, and you really want to be one of the first folks in there, and because you have the best chance of making money. This is interesting. So you can actually see here in this graph what's kind of happening as we increase, as we do marketing, as we increase kind of the payouts and so on, we see diminishing returns in the types of bugs we're getting. Right now, I think my goal is to continue to raise the award amounts to incent. I'm looking at Google as the 50,000 and 100,000 amounts are interesting to look at. My ultimate goal is to make this a viable career for people. I'd like to have a bunch of testers that have flexible work hours and are helping us at will from home. So my goal is to support that as an industry, and that's why I'm actually out here doing the talk, because if you sign up, that helps support this as an economy. That's it. Thanks. Thank you very much.